With the college football season headed into week 9 and just over the halfway mark, several teams that have seemingly qualified that are in the high rankings of the newly formed 12-team playoff. And there are several teams on the outside clawing their way in. And some are just trying to show some respect, despite the fact they haven't lost a game or they've only lost one contest. But with this week's slate of games showing several top 25 matchups on the slate, it's a possibility that we could see some ringing out of those teams and a new stepping of the stone for several teams. Want to find out who they are? Find out next on Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you all for hanging out with us a little bit. Of course, I am Mr. CeeLo. Glad you can make the rounds with us today as we go through college football's Week 8 schedule. As always, I got to do a little bit of housekeeping and let you guys know what's been going down. I gotta give a gab out to my man Brad, who once again showed up and showed out and made some comments on my show, Georgia Pulls Massive Upset in Austin, while the military academies remain unbeaten. This one's just out, you guys. It came out yesterday. Please go by and check it out. It's the results from last week. I'm trying to get these things leveled out, guys, but it's really tough. But go down and let you know all of my buddy Brad's comments and as well as give my take on them. I'm a Vandy fan this week. You'll know why later on, guys. Laugh. Yours is going to have nightmares about walkers, I guess. That being the walker that showed up 3 times in his backfield. I'm not saying that one. He says, I still love you, brother. Yeah, you do. I know. You got nothing but love for me. I got nothing for love for you, Brad. You're awesome, man. He likes SMU. I like SMU, too. They're a lot of fun, entertaining team to watch. Missouri and Auburn are a dumpster fire. That's true. Go Navy. No. He said, welcome to the SEC, Oklahoma, and Texas. As I said before, Missouri is doing their thing in there. All it's going to take is 1 year because right now Texas is still showing their hand and they're blowing through everybody. They just didn't blow through you, Brad. So, needless to say, I can't agree with you on that one. Go Pony Express. Yeah, I'm all on that ship, too. He said Notre Dame sucks. Well, can't say that for a guy who stormed the field when you escaped us either. And not to mention that you needed the officials to give you a call on a no good late hit out of bounds on Fromm when he had still 1 foot in grass. Yeah, I am that old. Yeah, he says I'm that old. Yeah, I am that old. I'm very old, you guys. But guys, listen, I will read that many comments on the air because ultimately I want to turn this into a platform for fans that want to banter about college football. And the only way we can get this is for you guys to continue to do what you do. I ultimately want this to be a round table of fans and people who are fanatical and love what they do. As I do, I love what I do. I have fun with it. And I hope you do as well. But yeah, make sure you subscribe and make sure you like the shows because that gets us a next step to reaching out to more people. And that's exactly what we want. We want to continue to open up these conversations, and I want to be able to have the fun with you and let you guys be a part of the show. That is the ultimate goal here, is being able to have fun with this and roll with it. We've got 5 matchups on here that include ranked teams. And guys, this 12-team playoff is supposed to make things even kill. We're supposed to not rely on one game like it was years ago. Then we got 2 games, and we still had teams that were left out because of certain biases. It's not nearly as bad as it was, but you still had biases because you only had 4 teams. So the next best thing is, let's expand it even farther. Here we are at 12 teams. And as I said before, this is a situation where I really think it's going to be great. It's going to ring out to the pretenders and the contenders in the next coming weeks. But let us get right down to it as let's see if we're going to have the type of matchups that we anticipated. Now, we will get to the other games at hand, but there was a game that was played last night, and I was watching it, and it involved the number 19 Pittsburgh Panthers. And watching this game, and it goes back to what I was saying about the Pittsburgh Panthers improved to 7-0 for the first time since 1982. So, this is a team that defensively is really good. Now, we already know, if you guys know the history of the Pittsburgh Panthers, they have been pretty good defensively the last 15 years. The problem is they haven't had an offense to be able to complement them. They haven't had an offense that complements their skill set or their players on that side of the ball. So what happened last night was, I'm just going to say it like, I understand why Kyle McCord left Ohio State. And now I'm not saying that Pittsburgh's defense didn't harass him. I mean, they harassed him all night. They really did. But when you look at the entire totality of this game, and you look at how badly this team harassed this guy. I mean, they were harassing Kyle McCord from the opening snap. I mean, I'm not saying he wouldn't have thrown those 3 pick sixes, but for him to come out and just absolutely obliterate the game from start to finish. He was 35 of 64, 321 yards, no touchdowns, 5 picks. And Eli Holston only went 11 of 15 for 108 yards, 2 touchdowns. Whoo-wee. Before we get into that, Pittsburgh is ranked number 19. I want you guys to take a look at something. My keys to Mr. CeeLo's keys to the upset victory. All the numbers are here, with the exception of one. They had 6 yards rushing the football to Pittsburgh 73. Now, this is what I want y'all to look at: total yards. Syracuse had 327 total yards to Pittsburgh's 217. Syracuse had 8 penalties for 70 yards to Pittsburgh's 328, but then 5 turnovers. I want y'all to look at this one right here. 41 minutes to 18 minutes was the time of possession for this game. And you got walloped. Because basically what was happening was you were giving the ball to Pitt, and they were going right down the field with it. Or in a nutshell, pick 6, kick it. Pick 6, kick it. Pick 6, kick it. Yeah. But I was watching. This game was a classic case of why Kyle McCord had to leave Ohio State. So whoever rated this guy a 4-star quarterback doesn't need to do that again. And it goes back to what I've said many times before. This is a dude that, in all reality, he made the right decision. There's a lot of people that are going to say, there were many people that made the promise that Kyle McCord was coming into his own. Now, I will admit that some of these interceptions were not his fault. But if you think about when you throw pick sixes, people, they're generally on outs. And the timing is off. And when your timing is off, A lot of the issues are you're getting the ball out late. That's a huge problem. This is why I'm such a opponent of throwing the ball on outs. Because I think it takes just as much skill set to throw balls on outs and to even lay balls out on screens. Timing. And if you don't have that, you're done. And I would venture to say that this game was over in the first half. I mean, it really was. I think Pittsburgh you can even argue that Pittsburgh took this game, took their foot off the gas. But anyhow, Pitt goes to 7-0 for the first time since 1982 and rack up the victory and pretty much put a wrap on what Syracuse had planned on doing this season. But we're going to skip ahead. No, we're not. We're going to go to number 22, SMU, 6-1 SMU, and 6-1 Duke. Now, when you look at this game, I really don't know a lot about Duke, but I know a lot about SMU, and I really love to watch the way this Jennings plays. This kid is going to be a star if he sticks around here. I would imagine unless SMU can get a couple of really good players, this kid will be transferred. This kid is exciting to watch. He is quietly one of the more exciting players in the country. And when you take the notion that Jennings is so explosive in both sides of the game, then you bring Brashard Smith into the running game. These are two guys that you have to look out for. They make a dangerous combination because Smith's got 7 scores on the season. So you can't just rightfully say that, hey, I'm just going to wait and look out for Jennings, because Smith, if he's sneaky good running the football. If the Duke Blue Devils are going to win this game, they cannot forget about Brashard Smith. If you forget about Brashard Smith, this guy is going to hurt you. He is going to hurt you. He is going to put the yards on, because he got 628 yards rushing. That is not something you can shake a stick at. You are going to have to keep an eye on this guy running the football, because as dangerous as Jennings is running the football, he's also dangerous throwing it. And I think the Duke Blue Devils have a pretty good defense. But when you talk about R.J. Maryland, the tight end who leads the team in catches, to me, this is the oversized wide receiver because he's got excellent speed for a tight end. He's 6'4", 233. And when you really start to analyze everything, this is a kid that's got on the verge of having more catches than he had last year. The only difference is his averages were higher. This year, he's turning more of the possession guy and the safety valve for Jennings. He's already got 4 touchdowns this season. He only had 7 last season. He had 6 this year before because he's going to break that. He could very well break it in this game. And if Duke's going to win this game, they're going to have to slow down SMU's running attack. Let Jennings have to beat you throwing the football. And I'm not saying he can't do it, but he's least likely to do it at such a devastating pace. You get out there and you try to go head-to-head with this team, it's not going to work out well for you. And see, Duke's only given a 24% chance to win this game, and they're in their building. And I've got to say, I'm looking at Duke quarterback Malik Murphy, the sophomore, 6'5", 230 from Inglewood. And I really like what this guy brings to the party. This is a guy that is very good when it comes to what he can do manipulating the pocket. He's very good at manipulating and stretching plays. The only thing is his decision making against what you call not necessarily quality opponents, but I look at his numbers and he's 137 for 232. He's just a shade under 60%, but he's thrown for 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. You know, after transferring from Texas last year, to me, this is a guy that has shown that, look, you're not going to put me in a one-trick pony type situation. He is trying to come out here and show the world that he is a great quarterback. And honestly, against a SMU defense that is not really great. It's okay, but you're looking at a defense that gives up a lot of big plays. And I think those are to be had. I think they can be had. You know, But we have not seen them play against an elite defense. Georgia Tech had a pretty good defense where he was 18 for 31. He had 2 touchdowns and an interception. But there again, you have an SMU offense. I think this is going to be a shootout. Do I think Malik Murphy can win in a shootout against Jennings? I don't know. I think what's going to happen is I think SMU has, they've got a much better. What I say is they've got a much better complementary of players. That's not to say guys like Jordan Moore, who's the speedy senior, can't get it done. But what it does tell me is I think SMU has got a more grip on their offense as does Duke. And Duke has not really played any teams that really stick out to me. They've got a close loss to BYU. They've got a very big win at Louisville. Now, everybody's going to say that doesn't mean anything. But Duke played Florida State close. They lost to Georgia Tech by 10. As I said, they're not really showing me a real... I just don't like this game as a whole. I think Duke could pull an upset, but I don't see it happening. I think SMU possibly runs away with this game. This could be one of those games that gets early. It's because I don't think Murphy's going to be able to do some of the things against a lesser opponent. I think Jennings shows out, and he shows why he's possibly a guy to look at for the future, Jennings being that. We got number 18, Ole Miss, hosting the 4-3 Oklahoma Sooners. Now, we can talk about Jackson Dart all day, but I think the real question is who are the Oklahoma Sooners going to put out there to face off? It's been Jackson Arnold. And honestly, right now, when you're playing 2 quarterbacks and you're playing, they were talking about possibly there being 3. And the truth of the matter is I think you've got chaos in Oklahoma's locker room when it comes to the quarterback situation. This is something that definitely needs to be solved. But then I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that their receiving core has been riddled. I mean, just absolutely decimated with injuries. And so many people don't really know that when they're looking at it. They don't understand that injuries can really saddle a football team. So when it really gets down to it, I think it's going to depend on whether or not this football team can recover from the amount of injuries that it's had. Yeah, judging by the report, the Sooners should be getting back one of their wide receivers, but as most of you know, most of their receivers are on injured. They've got about 4 receivers that I know of on injured reserve. They're done for the season. So not only is the quarterback situation a problem, but they're going to have to get more creative, in my opinion. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're going to have to get creative because all the quarterbacks are young. And like I say, Jackson Arnold's the guy that has been in there doing what he can do. And then, of course, you got the freshman Michael Hawkins, with his running ability. But everybody's, pretty much seen that ship sail. But ultimately, it's going to have to be on Venables to keep this defense, to keep them in games. And they're going to have to find themselves an offense. And they're going to find it pretty quick. Because, Ole Miss is not a team that, as I said, when they play against inferior opponents, they're going to run up the score on you. And the way Oklahoma's looked the last couple of weeks, it's not a pretty situation. If one thing I can say, Jackson Dart has been just monstrous against the lesser foes. He's 151 of 215. He's got 151 completions to 215 attempts for 2384, 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Now, had he performed at that level within the couple of the 2 previous games that they lost, he'd be off the charts. Parrish has got 612 yards rushing and 9 TDs. That's the one thing I'll say about Kiffin. He's gonna stack the stats when it comes to a team that he knows he's gonna have issues with. He knows he needs that to get his guys up there and make those stats look much more monstrous than they really are. But they're favored to win this game big. And honestly, the Oklahoma, I don't see them even giving this a game because it's in Oxford. Sorry, Natasha. But the reality of it is, Harris has got 59 grabs. He's almost at 1,000 yards for the year. He's a huge matchup nightmare for Oklahoma. I think even if Oklahoma doubles Trey Harris, this is not going to be a game that they're going to want to let Parrish go crazy on. This could be a game. He has a big game. I think Lane Kiffin's probably going to get Dart to throw a couple of crazy deep ones to him, have Oklahoma back up, and they're going to just try to run the football and get out of here with a win. Because really, all Ole Miss really has to do is get through the remaining part of their schedule. And this is not really an easy schedule, but it's, they've got to go. They've still got Georgia left on their schedule, but it's very doable. It's very doable. Get out of here and wait until they have to play the Bulldogs. But I think Ole Miss wins this game, and it's possibly going to be a runaway. Then you got number 17, Boise State. They're traveling to UNLV. Now, most of you guys know that one of my favorite players is Ashton Jeanty, the running back, out of Boise State. You got the Boise State. You got the Boise State Broncos coming in with a 5-1 record, and arguably one of the most exciting players in all of college football, and of course Heisman frontrunner Ashton Jeanty with 1,248 yards, 17 touchdowns. But in their own right, UNLV has an exciting player coming in at quarterback, and Hajj Malik Williams, the senior, out of Atlanta, Georgia. This is a guy who it looked like the Running Rebels season was over after their starting quarterback going into the season had transferred. Williams has amassed 62 out of 88, 838 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks. But he's also carried for 390 yards and 4 scores. Not to mention, he's got a reliable weapon that he's seen out of Marietta, Georgia, in Ricky White, who has accumulated 46 catches, 614 yards, and 9 touchdowns. This is probably going to be a high-scoring affair. I don't see this being a game that is going to be low-scoring at all. This is going to be a game that's possibly going to go back and forth. Now, I believe this could be a tricky game. I believe that this matchup predictor is telling us that Boise State is at a 62% chance to win this game. I don't think the odds are that even, in my opinion. I think what's going to happen is this game's going to be close going into about the fourth quarter. Jeanty breaks open a big run, and they're able to eke out the victory and run the clock out. But I think another huge part of this Broncos offense that's not being talked about is Maddox Madsen. He is 5'10", but this guy is still an efficient quarterback. He can spin it. He's 102 out of 160 for 1,273 yards and 12 touchdown passes, but only 2 interceptions. Now, I'm not saying that these teams don't play good defense, but they really don't. I don't want to just say you get away from it, but these are 2 really good offenses. But I think the key to Boise State's winning tonight is going to be determined on whether or not they can slow down Williams running the football. Force him into being one-dimensional, which is being in the pocket, seeing what they can do. I think they're able to do that right later on in the game. I don't think they're going to be able to do this early on. I think that's going to be a problem, and I think that's why this game is going to be a struggle for them to put away. But I do think that Boise is eventually going to put it away, and UNLV is not going to be able to run the football on the ground. I think Jeanty has another 200-yard rushing piece, and he's able to continue his march towards the Heisman. That game is tonight at 10:30, you guys. You got to tune in and watch this Jeanty kid. He's very good. You get in from watching whatever high school game you watch, check this guy out. Then we're going to move to number 16, Kansas State versus the disappointing Kansas Jayhawks. Well, we went from and this is even me. Jalen Daniels went from a guy whom we were and myself was believing that this guy was going to be a huge Heisman front runner or a contender. I mean, his numbers aren't horrible, but those 8 interceptions are just masterfully not good. And then on top of that, the defense for Kansas is not very good. Devin Neal's having a great season. He's up over halfway. He's up 100 yards rushing. And looking at what the Kansas Jayhawks have been able to do in their first couple of games, they've let games slip later on in games, and then there's been opportunities where they've been in games and they let them get out of hand. But then Kansas State hasn't won impressively either. You know, that's where I'm at with all of this. Avery Johnson has not been the sensation that everybody thought he was going to be. He's shown up in games that they're supposed to win. He's thrown for over 1,400 yards and 14 scores, but those 5 interceptions. When you look at who this team has struggled against, it has been the top teams in their conference. And we look here at the Arizona game where they blowed them out and then they got blown out by BYU. And you look at the Oklahoma State game. That game was close for a little while. Then you look at the Colorado game. That was close for a little while. Even the Tulane game, that was close. And I think this team I still have a lot of questions about. Can their defense hold up? Or is their offense capable of scoring enough points when it comes to these big-time matchups that they're going to have? Because, listen, they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. And I think the Wildcats have a star in Jace Brown. I think he's going to be an elite wide receiver. The sophomore is a straight baller. But I'm of the belief that the Kansas Jayhawks come in here after losing 15 straight in this series. I think the quarterback that is going to make a difference is going to be Jalen Daniels. I think Jalen Daniels realizes that this game in Manhattan is huge, but I honestly think that he's due for a breakout game. He is due for one of those Jalen Daniel games that he's not really had yet. I think this game stays really close. I think, now don't quote me on this. It would not surprise me if we see a game reminiscent to that Colorado game where it goes right down to the wire and they pull out the victory. Don't be surprised, people. I'm going to tell you, it would not surprise me if Kansas pulls this game out. But I'm going with Kansas State, but it would not surprise me if it went the way of Kansas State. One of the top tier matchups, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Number 21, Missouri versus number 15, Alabama. Let me just go ahead and say, without a shadow of a doubt, Alabama's going to mop the floor with Missouri. Because the reality of it is, Mizzou hadn't really played anybody. And when they finally did, I mean, let's look at what we got. Look at what we got. You had Auburn last week, struggled. UMass, you blowed them out. Texas A&M, you got absolutely the dog walked on you. Vanderbilt, you squeaked that one out in double overtime. And Boston College, who's a pretty good football team, but you squeaked that one out. Let's look at what they've done against superior opponents. I mean, let's look at what Alabama's done. They lost at Tennessee and they lost at Vanderbilt. They've struggled in Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee. They've struggled once or twice in Tuscaloosa. They've had to sit around all week and listen to this whole thing about Old Rocky Top and listen to Georgia gloat about beating Texas. They're not going to be happy. You think Kalen DeBoer is going to be happy? He's going to kick his boys in the behind, and they're going to come out and they're going to snuff Missouri. They're going to put them in the hurt locker and eliminate any possibility that Missouri had at thinking about that they could come and have a part in the 12-team playoff. This just ain't going to happen. I'm going to tell you, Alabama's going to wipe out any potential of Missouri even thinking about getting in this. I think Jalen Milroe goes off. I think he absolutely just, It's funny he's going up a guy named Cook. I think Milroe's going to cook them. I think he and Williams, I think Williams has over 100 yards, possibly even 150 in this game. And I think what happens is Kalen DeBoer gets back to the one thing that represents Alabama. He gets back to running the football. Because the reality, at this moment, Alabama should have a running back halfway to 1,000 yards. 7 games, and Miller's your top running back, and he's only got 400 yards rushing. Now, I get it. Alabama had to change with the times. I don't see the Boise State Broncos changing with the times. And I know a lot of people going to say, look at their level of competition. They've beaten some competition. You still have to run the football, even if you want to throw it. As well as Alabama throws it deep, you still got to stick to running the football. Even if that means getting Milroe more carries. Now, I get it. Milroe's thrown for over 1,700 yards. It's impressive. But you think about it, for the level of throws he's had, he's not averaging 300 yards a game. He's not averaging 300 a game. And honestly, Jalen Milroe's a good enough athlete, with Ryan Williams being that superstar deep threat that he is. It should be run deep. Alabama, in my opinion, should be the Pittsburgh Steelers of the college football landscape. In Missouri, I just don't give them much of a chance. I'm not giving them much of a chance. I think Cook gets flustered. He's only got 7 touchdown passes to 1 interception on 206 passes. Are you kidding me? I mean, Milroe's got 45 less passes, and he's thrown for almost 200 yards more than you. And he's thrown for 6 more touchdowns. No. This is not even a game. This really isn't a game worth looking at 3:30. If I looked up and Alabama was in a dogfight with them, I would be shocked. Number 13, in undefeated Indiana, hosts the 4-3 the Washington Huskies. Now, a lot of people are going to say, why are we even putting this on? Well, because here's the reality. You've got a wide open offense with Will Rogers, who is tossing that thing around for 1,820 yards, 13 scores and 2 picks. And then you've got Curtis Rourke, the 6'5" senior, who's thrown 135 for 181. The completion percentage is phenomenal amongst these two quarterbacks for 1941 and 15-3. But then the other element is the rushing game for both teams is absolutely underrated. You've got Ellison for the Indiana Hoosiers at halfway to 1,000, 8 touchdowns. Then you got Coleman, who's at 681 and 5 scores. So the offenses are there. There ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. And then you've got Giles Jackson, the wide receiver, the really speedy, quick wide receiver, as well as Elijah Surratt, the 6'2" junior, whom you look at these offensive weapons that these guys have, they're really impressive. Surratt nearly at 1,000 yards, halfway to 1,000. Jackson halfway to 1,000. And you look at what these two teams have done, but it begs the question as to whom these teams have really played, as Washington has beaten Michigan. Okay? And they've lost to Iowa, lost to Rutgers, and lost to Wazoo. Now, the reality of this is, do I think Indiana has not played anybody? I will say the win at Nebraska was very impressive, but outside of that, it's hard to point to a game that Indiana has really had any competition. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, outside of last week's Nebraska game, it's been a minute since this Indiana team has really faced anything on their schedule that really constitutes competition. I'm just not sold on it. And I think Washington presents a unique challenge. And do I think... Now, home field is the only reason I'm going with Indiana. I'm just saying, that is the only reason I'm even considering going with Indiana, because the truth of the matter is, Washington, although they have a high-powered offense, I think what happens with high-powered offenses when they go into a hostile environment, that sound plays a part. It becomes a huge key. And when you're talking about trying to get continuity and get snap counts right and get the snap off, it throws everything off. Everything is off by a sheer seconds or even a sheer half a second. It throws off the entire system as a whole. I think Indiana wins the game, but don't look up and be surprised if Washington is winning this game or they actually pull the upset. Next, we have number 12, Notre Dame versus number 24, Navy at 12 o'clock. We had some pretty good 12 o'clock games this week, you guys. This being one of them. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish find themselves in a situation where they're outside the 12-team college football playoff. And look, I'm just going to say it like this. As a Notre Dame fan, you look at this game, and so many people are looking down on it, saying, okay, you have the better talent, you're supposed to win. But when you're playing a football team that plays where they pick your players out, they're basically saying, okay, we're going to try you this time and see how you tackle, how you read. You basically are testing the intelligence of each player, but you're testing the intelligence, the ability of each player. Nobody thinks about Navy or in the style of offense that they run. They basically play football the exact same way that they in a nutshell teach their players how to live life. That we're going to pick the weakest links. And it's just like strategy. They strategize football just like they strategize in the military. They're going to find the weakest link, and I guarantee you during the course of a game, they're going to expose it. And this is why it's so important that Marcus Freeman and his coaching staff get it together early and start fast. That's what's going to predicate whether or not the Irish win this game, because once Navy zeroes in on something that works, trust me, there's only a handful of plays that they flip, and when they find a weakness that exposes that certain player or that exposes that certain aspect of their defense, they're going to eat on it all day. You will see the same plays. How many times have you said, if a play works, keep running it? That's why a lot of people can watch Navy when they're at their best. This option, if you're a Navy fan, you love this. The reality of it is, when you watch this football team, I'll say it like this. If you're not a fan of passing, this is the team you need to watch. If you love running football, this is absolutely the guy you want to watch. This is the team you want to watch. And I just say this, that if Riley Leonard's not able to get in the end zone and they contain him, the really hard part is going to be whether or not Navy can contain Notre Dame's running game. If they can contain Notre Dame's running game and keep Riley Leonard saddled, this is going to be a good slobber knocker type game, because this could turn into one of those 8 to 12 possession football games. It might even be less than that, because there's been times when, as explosive as Navy has been, traditionally they can chew up 8-9 minutes of a clock. That's not something you want if you're Notre Dame. You have got to get off the field, especially a team that has a propensity to go for it on 4th and less than 2, sometimes 3. Because their offense is averaging 4.5 yards. And when you get a team that is averaging like 4 yards a carry or 4 yards a play, and it's 4th and 3, what have you got to lose? You've already chewed off 8 minutes, but I don't think they're going to be in a situation where they're going to want to punt football. They're going to have enough faith in their defense that they're going to say, hey, look, we can't afford to run neck and neck with Notre Dame. We're not going to try and kick it to them. Would not surprise me if I saw them go for it the entire game. But as I said, I think Riley Leonard's the catalyst, as well as Blake Horvath. This guy's gonna be the guy. If Navy wins this game, Blake Horvath is gonna be the guy that wins it for him. He's over 600 yards rushing, and he's over almost at 900 yards passing. So he's gonna be the guy. And for me, it's gonna be Riley. For Notre Dame, it's gonna be Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love. And possibly Bo Collins. To me, if Bo Collins has a big game, he's only got 317 yards receiving on the year. To me, if Riley Leonard can get the ball down to Bo Collins, down the field, this is where their strength is. And Riley Leonard is going to have faith in Bo Collins if they're going to win this game outright. As now, I'm seeing it as there's a possible upset brewing. And most of you guys know I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I'm going to take Notre Dame on the edge. I'm going to say they pull away late. Then there's number 11 BYU versus 3 and 4 Central Florida, whom is one of the top rushing teams in the country. Yes, you heard me, in the country. They don't run it a lot with Jefferson. Jefferson's a running guy. And then you got Harvey, who's at 890 yards rushing on the season. Now, I'm just going to say it just like this. If UNLV, who's had a pretty darn good defense. Now, see, ESPN Analytics have used Central Florida winning this game. I mean, this is a team that has had some tough losses. They were blown out by Colorado. They lose to Florida 20-13. Then they lost to Cincinnati 19-13. And last week, they lost by 3 at Iowa State, at Ames. So, I know everybody's thinking this is a team that is ready to pull a massive upset. And I agree. I'm totally on board with that. But I don't see this being the week. I get it. They've been very close to being beaten. They were nearly beaten at home by Oklahoma State last week. But I ultimately believe that Central Florida's defense is not good enough. They're not efficient enough. I think Retzloff is able to come out there, and he's thrown 7 interceptions. I admit that. But I think ultimately the running game for Central Florida keeps them in this game. But I think Retzloff is able to push this team over the top and get BYU to 8-0 for the first time since 2020. So it's not like this is too far down the road, but I think they're able to handle Central Florida because, as I said, Central Florida gave a good game earlier in the season to teams like TCU, but I just don't see them able to pull this one out. This is going to be one of those games. They're going to run well, but I don't see them pulling this out. Then we look at number 8, LSU, and number 14, Texas A&M. Now, I saw Paul Feinbaum on the tube the other day. Actually, it was the day, talking about he's going to take LSU. And I know why he's taking LSU. He's taking LSU because of number 8. Did he not see what they did? Did he not see what they did to Mizzou? I guess not. So, with that being said, I'm not, as I said, sold. I look at it again as the pollsters. They put up who they want to put up. LSU's not 8th best team in the country. And I get tired of hearing it'll play itself out. That doesn't mean you should screw it up. That's supposed to be a chance where you actually make it right. And as I said, Connor Wigman is still kind of up and down. And Moss is still has emerged as the number 1 guy in that backfield. Whereas Nussmeier, I got a feeling this Texas A&M defense is going to be too much. I love Lacey. I think Lacey's a superstar wide receiver. I think he has a good game, but it's on the teeter-totter level of great game. I know what people are going to say. Well, A&M has won in certain situations. I think Nussmeier gets shook in this game, but I think he ends up trying to find Lacey, and that's what keeps it close. I think the LSU defense is not nearly as good as advertised. I think they're going to be able to run the football, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a situation where the A&M, the 12th man, is going to be the difference in the game. I think Nussmeier throws for 300, but I think he's going to have probably 2 interceptions tied to that. I think Wigman's probably going to throw an interception himself, but I think Moss has a big game, and even the A&M defense has a big game. And this is going to be, to me, a middle-of-the-road scoring game. And I'd like to see when LSU loses this game that they fall. That's right. You got other teams that can fall. You don't just shoot them back up and just because they're in the SEC and they got 1 loss. We got number 6 Miami against 1-6 Florida State. Why? Why didn't they just forfeit this game? Because this ain't gonna be pretty. This just ain't gonna be pretty. You know, I really feel bad for Norvell. You know, he's a good coach, regardless of what anybody has to say. He's probably the one coach that you just look at and you say, how did it all go wrong so fast? And we all know what happened. It was the exodus of FSU when all of that went down last year. And I think the NCAA has some apologizing to do and some fixing to do. It's not fair that Norvell's team was absolutely decimated because of the exodus and because they didn't get into the playoff. That's on the NCAA, and a lot of his players left exactly because of that. But enough about that. I can't fix Norvell and the Florida State Seminoles. I can only fix what this game is about, which is the undefeated Miami Hurricanes. And I'm just going to say it like this. The Miami Hurricanes are Cat 5 hurricane. A lot of people are going to say, oh, really? You think so? I'm looking at Cam Ward. I'm looking simply at Cam Ward, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not a position you want to be in if you're the Florida State Seminoles. You do not want to be in a situation where you're facing this football team and you're riding a 3-game losing streak at SMU, at Duke last week that you could have easily won that game. You played exceptionally well against the Clemson Tigers defensively, and now here you come. You're going into that buzzsaw that is the Hurricanes. And they've got college football playoff ambitions. Not to mention the Heisman frontrunner and one of the best wide receivers in the country in Restrepo. And yeah, the only way I see Florida State pulling this game off is they're going to have a pass rush that is going to get to Cam Ward and force turnovers, which he's prone to do. He's thrown 5 interceptions, so he's prone to making the bad throws. But you better be able to score the football. And Miami's defense has shown vulnerability within the middle of that secondary. Not deep, middle. Because they don't tackle exceptionally well. So I think if Norvell can figure out something in the middle of the defense, it would not shock me if Florida State pulled the upset. It would not. Even though I put my head in my hand and said, why did they even play this game? Norvell could use this kind of motivation to get these guys going next season. Watch. Number 5, Texas visits Vanderbilt. Now, I can tell you right now, the Texas Longhorns were not happy with their performance. And the reality of it is, you know that Steve Sarkisian is not happy. He understands that he's going to have a decision to make this week. It's going to be whether or not Pavia, the quarterback for Vanderbilt, is going to be able to keep up with Quinn Ewers. Now, Quinn Ewers absolutely was dreadful last week. He looked like a quarterback that did not know the pocket. He looked like a quarterback that didn't understand the pocket. But I think this week, he understands that his job is possibly on the line. Not just in his, but in public opinion around the country, including mine. Because I don't ever want to take a quarterback from his position, but I was not sold. I will tell you all, I'm not sold on Arch Manning. But the few things I saw in that Georgia game, he did. Ewers didn't. So, as I said, in the Texas running game has been non-existent, and that's what is hard to understand. Texas went back to it the game before. And I think they need to rediscover it. Quick. Because that is your strength. Georgia rediscovered its running game just enough to put you away. You need to go back to Longhorn football. Do I think Pavia is going to be able to do what he did against Alabama? Not against this defense. I don't care how loud they get this weekend. I don't see it happening. Texas is angry. They're upset. They want redemption. I think they get it. Number 4, Ohio State against Matt Rule's 5-2 Nebraska Cornhuskers. I see this as a redemption game, but I don't think it comes out the way Matt Rule would have wanted. They got embarrassed last week at Indiana. Now they're at the Horseshoe. I just think this one's going to be too much. I think Judkins has a good game. I think Will Howard has a pretty good game. And Raiola is still young. He's going to have some growing pains. I think he has a rough go at it this week himself. I think the same result that happened against Indiana last week happens yet again. I don't think this is going to be close. Ohio State's coming off of the last time they came out. Who did they play? You know who. So they're gonna be coming out. I think Judkins has a big game, and that's all there is to it. Number 3, Penn State travels to Wisconsin. Now this game has the opportunity to wake the college football world up. Now Wisconsin's lost 2 football games, but here's the thing: I'm still not sold on Drew Aller. I'm not. And I don't care what anybody says. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm still not a fan of Franklin's recruiting of the quarterback position. I don't know why he can't get these top-notch quarterbacks to go here, but he's got to be able to land one. If you can land at least one every 4 years, I mean, you get him in there with the idea, hey, I'll have you play as a freshman. But see, you did that with Drew Aller. And no offense. But I'm looking at Wisconsin. Now, I get it. This is not what they typically have. Tyree Walker is generally, you get your running backs out of Wisconsin. They're generally a lot bigger. But, Wisconsin's still one of the top rushing teams in the country. Braden Locke is not a great quarterback, but he is for what they do. And this is where Wisconsin, the same problem they're having with Penn State. They can't get a lockdown quarterback. The last great quarterback they had was Russell Wilson in the transfer portal. And if it wouldn't have been for a snuffed out secondary, they probably go to the national championship. Y'all remember. I don't think Penn State's going to run away with this one. I think this is going to be a game. Being with the fans at Camp Randall, they're going to put their thing down. I mean, they are not going to just let you walk into Camp Randall and get a win, because the only 2 losses that this team has had, they lost to USC in the Coliseum, and then they went to they went to the Coliseum, and then Alabama came and kind of put the smackdown on them at Camp Randall. And I don't think Penn State is on Alabama's level. I don't think the quarterback play is that good. I do think their defense is the real deal, but I still don't think that this team can do what they do. So I am going to say, judging by what I saw last week, I'm going to say Penn State wins by a field goal. I say they win by a field goal. And it may be in overtime. Now for the grand finale. Number 1 Oregon versus number 20 Illinois. Now, Oregon's had some time to, shake off anything if they had any against Ohio State. Now they played an Illinois team who, in my opinion, is not going to be walked all over, in my opinion. I think the issue that a lot of people are looking at is they're looking at, they barely beat Nebraska, they beat a Michigan team, it's this, that, and the other, and they let a Purdue team hang around, and then they went into Happy Valley and only lost by 14. Well, that's the very reason why I say you got to look out, because this could be one of those games that Oregon looks past. At the end of the day, you don't get any weeks off now with this schedule the way it is, because they've got at Michigan next week that they've got to face. And there's really nothing left on their schedule that, if you look at the schedule, that would really scare you about them. So it's a possibility they could look past Illinois, and this is a game. And now I'm not saying they're going to beat them like they did, Ohio. I don't think, because Ohio State was there. That game was theirs to win. And Oregon magnificently handled the clock and got it done. But I'm looking at Altmaier, and I say 15 touchdowns to 1 interception. That's pretty darn impressive. You know, because Dylan Gabriel is 174 for 226, 2,080 yards, 15 scores, 4 interceptions. But the thing you look at is the running game. They've got over 2,000 yards throwing the football, but they've also got just as many rushing yards, right? They're balanced offense. James has got over 700 yards rushing. And their defense flies all over the field. And see, you've got a lesser offense, in my opinion, of the Illinois Illini compared to the high-powered offense of the Oregon Ducks. And this defense that they have is fast. But I will say this. Do I think they have the juice to get it done? No. I know it sounds like I contradicted myself, but I didn't. The reality of it is this team knows what they got to do, and they are going to do it. They're going to stay the number 1 team in the land. I'm not saying that they can't get tripped up later on, but I just don't see Illinois having enough juice to get it done. I think Oregon's going to be too powerful, too strong. Autzen Zoo is going to be a zoo. And with that being said, I think Oregon pulls this out. Let me know what you guys think. Brad, I know you're going to throw in your 2 cents, and if you're a new fan to this, you'll get acquainted with Brad, and you'll get comfortable with bantering with me through your comments. Eventually, we're going to go to a live stream and make this thing even more effective than what we do. But guys, make sure you hit me up in the comments if you have something that you like or did not like about the show. Also, go to my Facebook, which is Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Sign up so you can become a member or a family member of the Gab family. Also, go down to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can find out what other shows and things that I'm involved in. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.